I'm hoping to accomplish, and the overall idea of this mod, is that I'll be able to get on the throttle earlier coming out of a corner without risk of breaking traction and going sideways. So we'll do a test now with it on the car and stock suspension otherwise, and then we'll test it out with coilovers and then without at a couple of different tracks, and we'll look at the data and see, and just kind of, I'll give you guys an idea on the overall feel on if this mod is worth it or not. That's the major geometry change right there. And depending on what group you run with, sometimes they don't actually allow you to run with these because it does change the factory pickup points of the suspension. So if you're looking to get into like some time trials or some racing, definitely check all your rules to make sure that they'll allow this or not. So, all right, now that we get the wheel off, we're gonna be going after that guy right there. So this plate right here that attaches to the subframe, you just have to loosen these two bolts about 5 millimeters. You don't need to take them fully out. And it's probably easier if you remove this whole plastic panel, but I just didn't feel like doing it. So we'll loosen those a little bit. Now install the factory bolt through the lower control arm. To help manipulate the control arm a bit, I just put a screwdriver in here, one of the relief holes, so that way you can kind of get some leverage to get this hole lined up. So definitely start this bolt that goes into the subframe by hand, just so you don't damage the threads. And then they have torque specs, so it's 145 Newton meters, which is the factory spec because it's the same diameter, just a little bit longer bolt. And now's a good time where if you were curious about installing white line subframe bushing inserts, now would be a good time to do that as well, since you have to take this bracket. Also for guys here in the Northeast, I recommend using some copper anti-seize on all your hardware. I just think this kit wasn't really designed thinking of the rust belt. It was probably meant for like California and Australia and stuff like that. So definitely use some copper anti-seize, and then make sure you torque everything to spec. So this isn't a 100% necessary thing, but with rubber bushings, I like to torque them at ride height position because of the deflection in the bushing. If you tighten it with the suspension unloaded and then you compress the suspension, it puts a lot of torque on the rubber bushing. It can just wear them out faster. It can have your suspension kind of behave in some weird ways. So this isn't necessary with spherical bearings, but if you still have rubber bushings, I recommend supporting the knuckle and then lowering the vehicle to get the suspension at ride height position, and then torque your fasteners. This one doesn't matter on the subframe right here. You can go ahead and torque that one with the suspension unloaded, because that's not like a bushing that's being rotated or anything like that, or stressed really in that direction. But yeah, the rest of the suspension, especially right here, I would torque that control arm bolt at ride height. So we started doing track days in 2009, and this is the first time I've ever trailered my car to the track. And I must say, it is pretty nice. I'd have to cram my son in the passenger seat with a full set of wheels and tires, all my gear. But I mostly did this so I could bring an extra set of wheels for my buddy Ryan. All right, we embark on our journey. What are you doing? Here I am with my child slave, son. Well, it's raining, which sucks, but should still be a really good learning experience. Really test out this traction mod, because in the rain you need as much traction as you can get. Morning, guys. Heading to work on the next day. Yesterday's video, I really wanted to get solid data to compare how the car felt the last time I had tracked it without the MCA traction mod compared to with it installed. The rain just added another variable that was hard to give it solid data that I can tell you, but I can kind of give you an idea on the feel, at least for now. And then when I do this event at the end of the month, hopefully it'll be dry, and then I can get some more data comparing the last time I tracked the car. So I can 100% confirm I can get onto the throttle mid-corner and corner exit earlier with the traction mod installed without the car wanting to spin. I mean, granted, it was very slippery, so the car, it did want to spin plenty of times, which you'll see in the video. But I can definitely get onto the throttle earlier, which I think is going to lead to better lap times, just being on the throttle, being able to stay flat through some of these corners. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about racing in the rain. So it's kind of frustrating, but I feel like it's a really good thing to learn, and it's a necessary thing to learn. Like, you're not always going to have the best days of weather at these track days. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of the times the track days are, you know, in a valley in the mountains, and the weather can change drastically. So what I really have learned about driving in the wet is that it forces you to be smoother, which is a good thing. It forces you to work much more on your line selection and to kind of get an idea on the difference in track surfaces. For example, if you go in the dry, if there's a painted curb that you can clip, and you just nail the corner by hopping that curb or going over that curb, in the wet, that painted surface becomes like ice. So you have to choose a different line, and all your inputs have to be a lot smoother. You know, especially with a higher horsepowered car, like some of these guys, it must be such a handful, because luckily this car is still pretty underpowered, so I don't have to be too careful, but I still like really have to be smooth with my inputs, my brake application, getting on the throttle and everything, or the car will just want to spin and you could die. So it was really fun. It was a good learning experience. I'm definitely glad that every time that I have a track day in the rain, I like kind of dread it, you know, but after it's over, I'm just really glad that I had that experience, and I feel like I've become a little bit better driver each time that I drive in the rain. So don't be afraid, you know, definitely, like, I'm not going out here on full slicks, so definitely be careful of your tire choice when you're doing these track days in the rain. But RE71 RS and the RE71Rs, I can confirm, both work really good in the rain. So it took about one lap to get the tires to start gripping. So after that, it was pretty good, where, you know, I could go at a decent pace without having to worry too much. Not a lot of understeer, just had a little bit of oversteer issues, and then also braking up to the threshold, you could feel the car get a little bit squirrely. No ABS application, which was pretty damn impressive. But yeah, so don't be afraid of racing in the rain. And next video, I'm going to an actual like time attack event called Staggered, and I entered the advanced track attack group. So I think it's going to be more of a car show crowd. So we'll see like what the competition is like, what the quality of cars is like. I'm not really sure, but we'll go out, we'll give it our best, and see what happens. See you on the next one.